Libra, when a long day finally closes itself, when the city lowers its volume to a faint whisper, what settles in your chest then? Not fear, not confusion, but a quiet alertness, just enough for the heart to pull its own door shut, slowly, like a room dimming itself at midnight. There are energies that do not arrive with noise. They show up in the shift of air, in the slightest change of atmosphere around you. Like walking across a wooden bridge that looks perfectly intact, the grains still smooth, the railings still bright, yet something inside you knows its strength is not what it appears to be. No one warns you, no one calls your name, and still, truth erodes quietly, waiting for the single moment weight meets weakness, and the first crack makes itself heard. Darkness doesn't always burst in. Sometimes it stands still, patient, testing whether you are awake enough to notice. For Libra, the believer in harmony, diplomacy, and decency, the approach of shadow energy is not lightning striking the ground. It is a slow veil, sliding over a light you once assumed was permanent. There is no fault in innocence, no fault in faith. But there are souls who know exactly how to work the softness of your heart, how to lean into your grace and bend it for their own design. So the voice you must hear right now is not a siren, but a gentle call. Pause. Pause to look. Pause to see. Pause to recognize who enters with truth and who enters with intention. When shadow comes close, it does not aim for your mood or your day. It reaches for your foundation, your earned name, your financial safety, the reputation built over years, not weekends. Darkness never pursues what can be discarded. It seeks what defines you. And everyone, eventually, arrives at the moment where the bridge beneath them must be examined before another step can be taken. For you, Libra, this is that moment, not to frighten you, but to awaken you, not to shut every door, but to know which to guard, which to unlock, and which must remain closed for good. Can you listen, Libra? Not with the part of you trained to analyze danger, but with the heart that has loved without transaction, forgiven beyond reason, and tried to understand even when hurt. Let tonight end not in alarm, but in ease, because behind every shadow waits a light ready to be switched on. Sometimes you must feel the worn wood under your feet to realize the task is not to rush across, but to pause and notice who walks beside you, what weight you carry, and what you have forgotten to protect. When your breathing slows, when your heartbeat steadies, you may see the threat was never the approaching force, but your delay in hearing yourself. And in that stillness, a door will open, quietly, like morning touching the window pane. Not an ending, but a beginning. A shift in awareness, where you no longer stand on a bridge that can break, but on ground that is firm, clear, and guided by a wisdom you have always owned, even before you had the words for it. Libra, some stories do not begin with a knock, but with a familiar smile. We're taught that danger comes from the unknown, but more often, it arrives wearing a face you once trusted, a voice you once leaned on, a presence you believed could never harm you. In the circle closest to you, where you have opened your heart, shared fears, plans, and the quiet corners of your inner world, there are silences that shift without warning. Small misalignments you did not register at the time. You are someone who always tries to understand, who forgives, who assumes people act out of exhaustion or unfair circumstances, not because they choose harm. But the truth is, some do not wait to be understood. They wait to reshape your words, to tint them with their agenda, and return them to the world as a distorted version of you. What startles you is not betrayal itself, but its softness, how quietly it moves, how it feels like a breeze passing through a room where you are asleep, making no sound, yet shifting everything on the table. Those you believed could not reach your core are often the ones who already have. They hold not only your secrets, but your rhythm, your kindness, the way you retreat to keep peace, the way you choose silence over conflict. People rarely need knives to wound. Words are enough. A look is enough. A nod at the wrong story is enough to make you question your own reality. For a Libra, the deepest pain is not discovering someone wanted to win, but realizing they were never actually on your side. You choose harmony over confrontation, softness over force, and second chances over final exits. But some do not want redemption. They only want to see how many doors you will open before you recognize you invited the wrong guest to your table. And when their aim shifts from your feelings to your reputation, your stability, your livelihood, it is no longer personal conflict. It is quiet warfare. They do not want you sad. They want you undone, not stepped back, but stepped down. Not misunderstood once, but observed through the wrong lens by the wrong eyes. You've grown used to explaining others' behavior to yourself. You've worn grace like armor, believing courtesy can save every bond. But grace has meaning only when the person on the other end knows how to hold it without tearing it. Have you noticed it yet? The stray comments now forming a pattern, the smiles that no longer reach the eyes, the night you left a gathering, feeling drained instead of warm. Red flags do not vanish. They wait to see whether you will truly look at them. If you listen closely, you'll realize betrayal doesn't begin the moment they lie, but the moment you stop trusting your own instinct. Do not let this be bitterness, Libra. Let it be soft understanding. Protecting your heart is not betrayal of who you are. It is simply choosing where your heart stands. As this story unfolds, you will see not everyone who stays carries light, and not everyone who leaves creates darkness. So be still for a moment, just long enough to feel the shift. A new chapter is sliding open, not rushed, not loud, just as dawn slips through the window without needing permission to begin. Sometimes the most dangerous things are not the storms that break in loudly, but the quiet inches between events, where even a harmless sentence can become the first fracture. In the next 48 hours, you won't be facing thunder. You'll be facing subtleties. Details so small others won't notice, but you cannot ignore. A friendly question that feels a little too precise. A late-night message wrapped in warmth, but leaning a bit too close to what they want to know. A sudden call, asking how you've been, who you're working with, whether you have new plans on the horizon. Everything arrives in the familiar tone of care, yet beneath each word, there is a quiet calibration, as if someone is mapping your expressions, your habits, your emotional gates. People may ask if work is steady, whether income is shifting, if partnerships will expand. But behind their concern is a hand quietly testing the lock on the door you closed for good reason. In these early hours, Libra, you do not need to react. Only observe. Because what matters most is not that they ask, but how they listen. Not to understand, but to record. Not to support, but to rebuild a narrative where you are no longer author, but subject. Then comes day 4. Like water that has gathered long enough beneath stone, movement begins. Rumors do not fall like rain. They leak, drop by drop, in places where you are absent, in conversations where your name floats not as truth, but as suggestion. A small misunderstanding becomes a doorway. A light remark becomes a seed of doubt. A casual retelling of your story turns you into a version you do not recognize. Do not be surprised if you feel watched without seeing the eyes. Do not be startled when a room full of laughter suddenly feels like it has no warmth left for you. Some former allies will stay silent, not to defend you, not to reject the lies, but because silence, too, is a declaration of allegiance. In these days, you will notice light is not always at the center of the room. Sometimes it is a thin strip on the floor, just enough to show you who truly remained and who merely passed through. Darkness is rarely just dark. It has cadence, tone, and masks fitted so perfectly you cannot tell which smile is real and which intention is not. People will speak of you lightly, but it is that very softness that will weigh on your chest. Your name will travel through spaces you've never entered, carried by voices you once trusted. Not everyone will attack you, but not everyone will protect you either. Libra, you do not need to explain, nor race to clear the air. Stand in what you know is yours, in values that do not bend, just because perspective does. This is not the time to tell them who you are, but to let them reveal who speaks about you and why. When 7 days pass, you will see the world did not collapse. It simply changed shape. And in that shift, you lose nothing essential. You gain clarity, one more layer of discernment, and the quiet courage to step out of conversations your soul no longer belongs to. There are signs that don't arrive to frighten you, but to remind you that you were never meant to walk this stretch alone. When the sky shifts between daylight and dusk, when thought settles like a thin film of dust on a quiet table, you begin to see the messages the universe sends. Not loud, not abrupt, just precise enough to stir the heart of someone who has lived long enough to recognize a whisper when it comes. Maybe one morning, as you open the window for fresh air, a bird settles on the ledge, unafraid, unmoving, just watching you as if it knows its timing is not accidental. Or on your way home, a dark-winged shape crosses your path, interrupting a stream of thoughts moving too quickly for your own good. In moments like these, Libra, don't rush past the ordinary. Pause. Breathe once more than you think you need. Ask yourself what you were thinking in the exact second the wing brushed your world. The universe rarely explains. It hints. A soft tap of feathers against glass. A sound slightly out of place in an afternoon that felt still. What matters is not the form of the sign, but the moment it chooses you. Because sometimes the sign arrives right when you're about to decide something pivotal, or when you're standing at the crossroad where trust and logic negotiate with each other. Then there are the numbers. Not coincidence once, but repetition to the point even the most skeptical mind goes quiet. 11, 111, 1111, 7, 77, 717. They appear like a code, tapping gently on the edge of your awareness, as if someone on the side of light is reminding you to look up. This is not superstition. It is a language older than speech, a pattern made for those who notice, who listen, who know life is more than what meets the eye. When the numbers come, read them not with analysis, but with a touch of faith. They aren't asking you to decode, only to remain steady, not to chase rumors, not to let borrowed narratives enter the calm room of your mind. Fear always arrives with volume. Awakening, however, arrives like a breath, and then a different kind of sign, the one that shakes you, not because it is strange, but because it was once familiar. Someone who left your life or drifted out of your orbit suddenly appears again. Not to take, not to reclaim, but to deliver a fragment of information that feels oddly relevant. You speak casually, as if catching up is natural, but when the call ends, something inside of you shifts. A puzzle piece slides into place. A blurred face becomes clear. A dynamic in your current circle looks different under new light. They aren't here to warn, but to fulfill a role, written for them long before you learned the lesson. Libra, when these signs come, treat them like a candle in a dim room, not to expose others, but to illuminate your next steps. Because when your inner world is lit, you no longer need to push darkness away. It simply folds itself and exits quietly. And in that exact understanding, the story begins to open into a deeper chamber, where messages are no longer caution, but guidance, gentle as early warmth slipping through the gaps of morning, signaling a new path you are finally ready to enter. No panic, no haste. Only the soft certainty that peace is not the absence of shadow, but the clarity to walk through it without losing your own light. There are seasons in life when everything seems to shift off its original orbit. People speak of you in ways that don't match the truth. Stories get stretched. Whispers travel farther than they were ever meant to go. You feel the movement of something unclear in your space, like a fog that refuses to lift even when the sun is out. But what you may not have fully realized is that in the very moment darkness appears to have the upper hand, a quieter force is already at work beneath the surface. Cosmic justice doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with symbols or spectacle. It slips through event by event, conversation by conversation, mask by mask, as each one starts to loosen from the face that wore it too perfectly. When you choose silence, not the silence of surrender, but the silence that refuses to wrestle with noise. The universe reads it as a signal that you are ready to step out of reactive emotion and into conscious clarity. There is a turning approaching, Libra, not the kind that echoes like thunder, but the kind that shifts the foundation of the story itself. Those who spoke over you, those who arranged pieces, those who thought they could blind every eye in the room. They will not hold their position for long. Truth can be delayed, but never buried. The light you have carried patiently will eventually illuminate every corner, every misplaced connection, every version of the narrative that was built on anything but honesty. And when that moment arrives, you won't need to speak. You won't need to defend. You will simply need to be there to witness. Calculation, no matter how intricate, can never rewrite the course of cause and consequence. Light does not move at human speed. It moves at the precision of divine timing. Your stillness is not weakness. It is permission for time and karma to do what anger never could. The universe isn't asking you to forgive overnight or erase the wounds that shaped you. It only places a gentle hand on your shoulder, reminding you that not every battle needs clashing steel to conclude. Some wars end by the simple unveiling of truth, by the collapse of words that cannot hold their own weight, by the quiet exposure of intentions that were never what they claimed to be. The most beautiful part of this phase is not proving who was right or who was wrong, but discovering that real honor doesn't need defense, only integrity. Every step you take, every boundary you keep, every moment you step back to avoid being dragged into a storm is an unspoken declaration of who you truly are. You may not see it yet, but in staying composed, you are not just protecting your name. You are teaching your own soul its most sacred lesson. Stand upright without needing to stand above. Move forward without needing to rush. See through without needing to expose. And in the quiet moment when you notice the wind shift, the story shifts with it. Not abruptly, not with curtains falling and lights flashing, but gently, like late afternoon light slipping through the blinds, signaling a new page about to unfold. Softer, clearer, and finally, yours. In the most delicate seasons of your inner life, you don't need elaborate rituals, mystic chants, or any physical tools at all. All you need is your own presence. Truly present, nothing more. And yet, when done fully, that alone can shift your entire field of energy, the way sunlight changes its tone when night finally loosens its grip. Choose a moment when the world grows small, when no one has quite begun speaking the language of the day, or when evening has just set its weight down after the noise has finished. Dawn or dusk, the only two places on the clock where light and dark stand together on the same horizon line. That is when this practice meets you most clearly. No candles needed, no soundtrack, no crafted atmosphere. Just be near a window or anywhere the sky can see you and you can see it. To remember, you are not hidden beneath any invisible ceiling. Take one long breath in, slow, unrushed. Don't let the mind run ahead. As that clear air enters you, imagine it touching not only your lungs, but every small point within your body, like light sinking gently into fine cloth. And when you breathe out, let the heavy layers leave, the ones that settled on your heart without permission, fall away like leaves in their rightful season. No pain, no clinging. Place your right hand on your heart, your left on your abdomen. A simple gesture, yet grounding. This is you, the center, the meeting place of feeling and life itself. No forcing, no straining. Just speak your affirmation as naturally as you'd greet yourself after forgetting to check in for too long. I am Libra. I am protected by light and universal justice. No darkness can touch me, for my energy field is held and guarded. Repeat it 7 times, not to build power, but to remember it. With each repetition, feel another layer of protection form, like a soft, invisible cloak, warm enough to block the cold, refined enough to filter what was never meant for you. Now picture a ring of light around your body, not a blinding halo, but a gold warmth, bright enough to define boundary, soft enough to remain kind. This circle is not a wall. It is a door that chooses. It lets love in, lets gentleness stay, Let sincerity stand near, and closes when deception pushes forward, when envy leans in, when someone tries to shape your softness into their advantage. During these 7 days, don't expect miracles to appear outside. Let them happen in the quiet of your own system. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to fold emotions into rigid discipline. Just remember that loving boundaries are also a form of protection. When the final breath of the ritual dissolves into the air, you'll feel that nothing weighs the way it used to. Not because the world changed, but because you rose into a different layer of awareness, where peace requires no proof and balance needs no struggle. And right there, in that unannounced moment, what felt like an ending opens softly forward again. No longer a ritual of defense, but a homecoming of your spirit to itself. Slow, kind, like evening light fading across a still lake, leaving no ripple behind. Sometimes what exhausts you most isn't the battle you're in today, but the echo of an old wound that has been walking beside you for far longer than you realized. Some of us grew up believing we had to be good in order to be loved, to keep the peace so we wouldn't be abandoned, to soften every edge so no one around us would break. And while those lessons helped you survive, they also became the open door through which others entered your heart without ever needing to knock. From early on, you learned how to make room for the feelings of others, so much so that you forgot to ask whether your own feelings had enough space to breathe. You learned to smile when you were misunderstood, to step back when you were hurt, to stay silent when your voice was the one thing that needed to be heard. People saw your gentleness and mistook it for endurance. They saw your kindness and assumed you never grew tired. But beneath all of that is a Libra who once cried, not because you were weak, but because you didn't want anyone else to hurt. A Libra who stayed in expired relationships, who believed that if you were good enough, patient enough, loving enough, people would change. Some do, some don't. Some bonds heal you, others widen the cracks. What the universe is asking of you now is not to shut the world out, but to open the right door to the right people. Not everyone who smiles at you means well. Not everyone who sits at your table comes to celebrate your joy. Some touches feel intimate, yet slowly erode your trust in yourself. You have forgiven so much that even the scars have become proof, not of damage, but of who you managed to stay in spite of it. Still, kindness is not a reason to allow anyone access to the peace you now protect. If someone makes you feel smaller in your own story, if their advice plants doubt instead of clarity, if you leave the conversation feeling less yourself than when you entered, trust that this is not a failure of yours. Some use words like fine threads tied too tightly not to lift you, but to keep you held beneath their control. And don't overlook the figure of the man with influence or wealth, who appears steady, but may be moved by a quieter agenda or someone else's hand guiding him. You don't need to expose him. You don't need to confront. You just need to see clearly and step back quietly enough to keep your light intact. The universe isn't asking you to grow thorns, only to build boundaries. Boundaries are not the rejection of love, but the protection of the heart from loving in the wrong direction. In this phase, hold your financial plans as gently as a young sprout. Don't hand them to the wind. Don't sign too soon when your instinct says wait. Don't reveal too much when the eyes listening lack honesty. Maturity doesn't teach us to doubt more. It teaches us to trust selectively. And when you finally understand that love does not require endless sacrifice, and softness is not the same as surrender, you will feel a quiet relief, like winter finally giving way to its first spring light. This is not an ending. It is the pause where the soul exhales and recognizes it has grown enough to stand in the brightest place without explanation. And in that soft recognition, without noise, without proclamation, the story tilts toward another horizon, where you not only understand why you once hurt, but why you now deserve to move forward lighter, steadier, and entirely in rhythm with your own heart. Libra, when a storm finally passes, most people look for broken branches, loose roof tiles, or the marks water leaves behind on the road. But some storms don't leave evidence on the outside. They leave it inside you in the form of a new shape of peace. You are no longer the one running from strong winds. You've become the one who learned how to stand still right in the center of the cyclone without losing yourself. Not strength born from force, but calm, born from growth. After walking through this trial by fire, you are not just a survivor in name, but a survivor in truth. Your honor doesn't simply return, it deepens. Because when truth rises, it always brings a quiet kind of respect. Those words that once shook you now feel small compared to your clarity and your inner steadiness. After March, without rushing, you'll notice the quiet sprouting of all the things you once held close, but were afraid to speak out loud. Not sudden success, not blinding spotlight. Just a deep satisfaction that you have been moving in rhythm, in alignment, at the right time. Plans once tucked into memory, dreams once whispered only to yourself, begin to find their way into daylight. The next 1 to 2 months are not the hardest stretch. They are simply the stretch where you must hold the wheel gently but firmly. No reacting just because someone provokes you. No defending yourself just because someone misunderstands. No choosing noise when silence can protect you more gracefully. You do not need to win every conversation. You only need to remain whole. At the level of a soul that has matured, victory is not defeating another. It is not dimming your own light. And in the realm of connection, where you once felt drained, the universe will shift the atmosphere. Someone will step toward you with sincerity, not possession, not disguised pain. Whether they arrive as love, or as a true friend, or as a healed version of a past bond, they come like sunrise, soft but undeniable. They look nothing like the faces that once hurt you, not because they are perfect, but because they have no need to hide behind a mask. When the spiritual journey reaches maturity, you don't change who you are, you change your boundaries. You don't stop being gentle, you become gentle with the right people. You don't become colder, you simply stop allowing yourself to be worn down. The end of this cycle isn't an ending at all. It is a quiet graduation. No stage, no fireworks. Just you entering a new life with a different presence. Light, but not unguarded. Kind, but not available to harm. Calm, but never blind to truth. If this storm was a test, then you are the proof that a soul can grow without losing its brightness. And when peace returns, it won't be because the storm feared you, but because you finally stopped running from it. Life will not promise a future without waves, but it promises this. You will no longer be the one swept under. You will be the one who knows when to drop anchor, who listens to inner voice more than outer noise, and who understands that peace is not the absence of pain, but the ability to breathe steadily, even when pain visits. Libra, this is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of another chapter. A chapter without storms. A chapter with light. A chapter without the need to prove, only the need to be. And in that place, you do not just live. You live with dignity, with quiet freedom, and with the peace the universe has been preparing for you for a very long time.